Okay, so it's fall time, the end of October, and I am up here right now, one of my favorite places in the world. I'm up here in Michigan where my grandpa's from. We got water temps from 46 to 48 degrees now. What I'm gonna try to do is capture a lot of the footage. My buddy, Scotty here, and myself, we're gonna be crankbait fishing. Now it's fall time, so we're fishing for bass, pike, wallies, but mainly big smallmouth. So what I'm gonna be doing is throwing a crankbait. Now I'm using a Veracity bait casting reel here. It's a rod, it's a 7-foot rod here. It's awesome for feeling everything. Then I use a Revo Rocket. I also use a MGX. Cool thing about the Rocket is when I fish it, I can throw it out a long ways and I can fish fast. The Revo Rocket takes up an enormous amount of line really quick. So if I'm trying to cover water and fish fast, this is how I crankbait fish. I'm just fishing really fast. Pause, jerk, pause. Okay, so Scotty's hooked up, and here's what happened. We were cruising along up in the Upper Peninsula here this past week, side imaging an area of the lake neither of us had ever fished before. We came across a nice big rock pile. Scotty pointed it out on the side imaging, took a cast over there. He's hooked up. Now we're fishing for schooling big smallmouth bass. I cast right back out there with a crankbait, and as you can see, give it a couple pumps, missed one right there, and boom, I'm hooked up and we are doubled up. The cool thing about fishing in the fall, when the water temps are in the 40s, anywhere from 45 to 50 degrees, usually these fish are putting on one big last feed bag here. And if you can find in the fall where these fish school up, you can really capitalize on having a lot of fish in a short period of time. So I'm just gonna let the video run. I have the GoPro running on top of my head, and I just wanted to run it in real time. Now we went through a ridiculous amount of fish, Scotty and I did. We got a lot of fish in that 2 to 4 pound range, and then we got a lot of fish one day in that 4 to 6 pound range. So all I'm doing is throwing a deep diving crankbait here, just pumping, pausing, keeping a tight line. Every time I pump and pause, boom, I feel the fish smack it. Scotty, on the other hand, Scotty's throwing out a trap. So when we're both searching for fish, you know, a lot of times when you fish with a partner, it's good to use different baits. Sometimes they want a rattle trap, sometimes they want a crankbait, sometimes they want a swim bait. You never know, a jig. And as you can see here, when you find the big mother load of fish, a lot of times they'll eat just about anything when they're really fired up like they are. But I like throwing crankbaits in the fall. It gets me a lot of big fish. Scotty's throwing a trap. And then a little while later, when the crankbait bites started to die down, then we started fishing with some swim baits like big rib shads. I'm just fishing with a Revo Rocket here, and I like to fish fast, cover water, and that's what's pretty cool about the Revo Rocket in dirty water here. It works very good. Scotty, you know, a lot of times it's important to mention here when we're fishing somewhat dirty water, as you can see here. And so when I'm fishing dirty water in the fall for smallies, I like baits that displace a lot of noise or vibration, such as a crankbait or a rattle bait here. A lot of times in the fall when we're fishing these lakes, clear lakes will throw jerk baits, but in the stained water, I like fishing baits that displace water, like a crankbait or a rattle bait, or even like a blade bait here, or jig and spoon. We found a mother load of smallies here on a deep rock structure, and honestly it was literally double after double after double for a while here, just catching fish after fish. And the cool thing about fishing with my buddy Scotty here is because I have to give him the same amount of credit, because he's willing to sit next to me when we're out there scouting. The first 2 hours of this trip this day, we didn't wet a line. We didn't fish. All we did is looked on our Lake Master chip, and we looked at spots that looked very productive for fall smallmouth bass. And then we just side imaged these areas. Now if you want to side image these areas, whether you have a Lowrance or a hummingbird, I can't tell you how important it is to drive around and look for fish and look for structure. We waited until we found a mother lode. We marked it on the GPS, and as you can see, I've got the GoPro running on my head. We had fish after fish after fish here, just cast after cast. So that's the importance of hunting the fish down with side imaging. It shows you everything that's going on beneath the surface of the water, much better than even sonar. Scotty's hooked up again. I'm hooked up again. We've had non-stop action. You know, it looks easy. It really looks like, wow, this is easy, you know, when you guys get on them like this. But the bottom line is, you know, Scotty's willing to put in the work with me. And a lot of times when you go out scouting, you just need to put in a lot of time to find the pieces of structure that hold the fish. The spot on the spot. And when you find the spot on the spot, the fish can just be piled in there in the spring and in the fall when they're really putting on the feed bag, when they school up like they are. The action's tremendous. We're fishing up here in Lake Superior, in some bodies of water that are connected to the Great Lakes. So you've got some giant fish, you got great numbers of fish. And when you're crankbait fishing in the fall like this, you really never know what you're gonna catch. You can catch big smallies like this, you can catch big walleyes, you just never know. Crankbait fishing up north, big fish baits. You always get a lot of bites. You know, one thing I want to point out again is when you're fishing a deep crankbait in the fall, you really want to try to find a bait that you're going to maintain some bottom contact. I like fishing over structure, deep rock, especially in the fall. And I love to hit the bottom, I love to tick the rock, I love to hit the weeds and rip through them, causing a quick reaction strike from fish. You rip a bait right by them, you pause it for a second, you keep a tight line, and boom, they smack it. So even in cold water, big walleyes, big smallmouth, they will school up, and crankbait fishing is one of those techniques that for me as a professional angler has taken me many years, and I still learn tremendous amounts about crankbait fishing every year. But crankbait fishing for big smallies like this, I do the same sort of thing in the fall down here in the harbors for salmon, these same sort of crankbaits in dirty water. The same thing for trout. They work very well for big largemouth. Crankbait fishing, if you're a guy that wants to go out and catch big fish, and lots of big fish, spring, summer, fall, you really want to put crankbaiting down on the to-do list for trying to master it here. So it's taken me many years to crankbait fish, and you mix in technology with being able to find pieces of structure and the right tackle, having the right rods, the right reels that you can cast a long distance. You know, the Veracity rod I'm using, you know, the micro eyelets there, just everything about the rod. I can fish super fast, super far. I'm using a Revo rocket. Most guys wouldn't even think to use that for crankbait fishing, but I like fishing quick and fast, quick little pop, and it just allows me to keep a tight line when I'm crankbait fishing. So if you're gonna get out in the fall, try crankbait fishing. It's not too late. The water's still cold here. The fish are still biting. This is just the techniques that we're using. We bounce off the structure, we rip the bait, we pause. We rip the bait, we pause. We rip it and pause, and then usually, like I said, about 80% of your bites, they'll come on that pause. Right as you're just pausing that bait, sometimes as you're swimming it right next to the boat, they'll follow it up like this one, and they'll smash it right next to the boat. So follow that crankbait, rip it all the way back to the end of your cast. It's just another way of catching big smallies, man. We love smallmouth bass, are probably one of the funnest fish you can catch up here as far as freshwater fishing goes. And if you pick the right lakes, the Great Lakes specifically, there are some tremendous fishing opportunities that you can have. Here I'm stuck on a piece of structures, I'm ripping the crankbait, and bam, you can see just always making that contact on the bottom with the rock, with the wood. After I pop it free or I feel something, I let it pause there for a second, give it a little pop, and the fish almost always hit it on that pause. So make sure that when you're going out there and you want to crankbait fish, You can bomb that cast a long ways. I tell people, you know, if you're not too good with casting a crankbait rod, what you want to do is just throw it out there, use your trolling motor, and just troll around if you're not good at casting. But make sure you put crankbaits into your game. It'll make you a better fisherman.